Entering the Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2022 PGA Championship Picks. Research. First look into both the odds and the course. We're going to be running a model powered by FantasyNational.com. If you want to follow along, get your own membership at Fantasy National. Easy stuff. Get 20% off with FantasyNational.com/Mayo. It makes it easy. Smash the like while you're out there. Share the show around. Sub to Mayo Media Network. And in the comment section, give me your lean on who is going to win this year's incarnation of the PGA Championship at Southern Hills. In a minute, Troy Martin, caddy for Stephen Ames, and the guy that did the Yardage Book for Southern Hills, will be joining me on the line a little bit later. I'll do the statistical breakdown, and then we'll cover the odds. Big week worth of shows, and of course, that always comes with giveaways on the Pat Mayo Experience. Here's what you need to do. I got multiple $100 cash money giveaways for you out there, and you can get your hands on them if you want $100. Who wouldn't want $100 for like 3 seconds of work? Here's what you do. You have to sub to Mayo Media Network. You see the show on social? You share it around, all right? Also, sub to the newsletter that's down in the description. I'll have info every single day down there, and leave a rating and review, 5 stars for the Pat Mayo Experience on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave your Twitter handle and or email address if you don't have a Twitter handle, and you will be in that draw. I'll announce the winners, I believe, on Tuesday's show with Rick Gaiman as we go player by player, because I got the DraftKings breakdown, the betting card, the live chat, the player by player. We got you covered all week on Mayo Media Network and the Pat Mayo Experience. And the big thing, we got a lot of spots to fill for the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League on DraftKings this week. It is rake-free, guaranteed money. So every cent that goes into the pot is going to go back to one of us who ends up winning it. 3 max entry, $15 to play. The league is now open. The link is down in the description. Go hit that right now, because we are talking Southern Hills for the PGA Championship, and it's going to be a long one out there, or maybe it won't be quite as long. Maybe Troy can fill us in on some of the ins and outs of the course. I mean, I know that he will, as I've already recorded that part. So yes, he will inform us about what sorts of players that we're looking for. We're going to use that information to build the statistical model for this week and try to churn out some winners for the year's second major. But right now, Southern Hills, it's in Oklahoma, and it is playing 7,556 yards. Obviously, the tees are going to move each day, but the biggest point of contention coming into this, like whether you looked around the internet, wherever it was going to be, despite the fact that for previous major championships, it had always played as a par 70, it was listed as a par 71. Not the case. It is going to be a par 70. So a 7,556-yard par 70, bent grass greens, Bermuda rough, Zoysia fairways and rough as well, with a blend in there, as Troy will point out in a little bit, that with the weather in May in Oklahoma, the rough is just not going to grow out as much, so expect wind to play a factor, expect speed to play a factor, and expect spin to play a factor on the course. So let's jump into it. Let's bring Troy in right now and dig into what he has done by both doing the Yardage Book and looping for Stephen Ames at the 2021 Senior PGA Championship, which was played at Southern Hills post-redesign. So that's the first big look that we had at this course post its redesign, from getting rid of a ton of trees on this course, making it more open and susceptible to the wind. Let's bring in Troy right now. Well, it's time to dig into the course, Southern Hills. And I was trying to wrap my mind of how we break down a course that, at least from a PGA Tour perspective, that we haven't seen in well over a decade, when Tiger Woods is your last champion at this course for the PGA Championship. What does that really tell us? Tiger's really good. We know that Tiger is really good. So we need to get the inside man of how to break all of this down. So joining me on the line, live from the course, well, not Southern Hills, but a course, I think where are we? Troy Martin's on the line. He's looping for Stephen Ames this week. Where are you exactly in Texas right now?
We are north of Houston at the Woodlands. Used to be the TPC, the Woodlands. PGA Tour played the Shell Houston Open here for many years, and now the Champions Tour has been here for maybe 8 to 10 years, and it's called the Woodlands Country Club Tournament Course, north of Houston, Texas.
All right. Is it a place where I should potentially try to get on the course at if I'm ever in Houston?
Terrific. Here in the Woodlands, they have bet they've got a dozen courses you would love. The Woodlands itself, I think, has 4 championship golf courses, and there's several other private clubs in the area that are fantastic. It's a great spot. Golf mecca.
Well, you're currently looping for Stephen Ames, which is important as we talk about Southern Hills, and you've been on the bag for Dave Stockton, Nick Price, Nick Faldo, Peter Jacobson. Like, it's been a pretty excellent career. Plus, you've won tournaments worldwide as well. But the biggest thing why I really wanted to talk to you, and I think why we got hooked up, is that you have a company, the Bucket Boy Graphics, where you do a lot of the yardage books, including Southern Hills. So I think it's going to be really important to talk to you. What does that entail, doing the yardage book for courses?
It takes about 50 hours. It's a process of 2 full days on site, mapping with GPS units, GNSS receivers, and a pole. And I've got drones, and I use lasers, reflectors. I use all sorts of techniques to gather the data. And then it's maybe another 20 hours of time on the computer getting the graphics together, getting all the data in place that the players and caddies need to obviously save them a lot of time. So once they get on site, they can grab the book, go mark, go walk to maybe just add some personal notes for however their player or whatever the caddy might want to add to the book. But it saves each of those guys, a good bit of time, 50 hours of which they wouldn't have. It's just something I've been doing now for over 20 years, and it's turned out to be a really nice business. Very lucky.
Oh, absolutely. And it's very important, especially to people like me who are trying to dig into the course every single week to try to find the actual player fits, where guys need to locate the ball, how this tournament is going to play. But you have some firsthand experience at Southern Hills, the 2021 Senior PGA Championship. Obviously, Alex Chaikia won that, but it does seem like maybe you charting this course may have come in handy for your player as well.
It's probably probably benefits a little bit. I can't imagine anybody would know the courses better than I, come tournament time. But it's neat that we were able to play it last year, and then the PGA is following up this year. That doesn't happen very often. And so, as you can imagine, we felt the course played pretty long last year. And I can't tell you how many times we'd stand on the tee box we were playing and look back about 80 yards and see another tee. They're waiting for the guys, coming this year, and just kind of shaking our heads. And then, like I said, when I did see the scorecard this morning for the first time, they're playing at over 7,500 yard par 70. It is going to be a beast.
So what did it play for the Senior PGA Championship in 2021? How much shorter was it?
I think we played it about 400 to 500 yards shorter, which is significant there because the golf course itself has fairly small greens. And so, the Champions Tour players, guys, they don't fly it as high. They don't spin it as much. We were still hitting some 4, 5, and 6 irons into a good bit of the par fours. You add 60 yards to some of those, it's going to be something else. It's going to be tough.
So looking back at the previous competitions that we've had at Southern Hills over the years, obviously I mentioned Chaikia won the Senior PGA Championship. My best friend, Byung-Hun An, won the U.S. Amateur in 2009 at Southern Hills. Tiger won the 2007 PGA Championship. Retief Goosen won in 2001 as it was set up for the U.S. Open. When we think about how the PGA of America is going to set up this course, obviously as a par 70, over 7,500 yards, it's going to be long. So that was the first thing that I wanted to kind of hammer down on is when we're thinking about the types of players that aren't necessarily going to dominate, but at least have an easier time out there. You mentioned 6 irons, 5 irons as second shots into par 4s for some of these courses or for some of these holes. That starts to lead me to believe is this going to distinctly benefit a bomber type? Like driving distance will play key, or do you think that the rough will be up enough here where if you're not in the fairway, you're in a lot of trouble?
Well, since all of those guys you mentioned, with the exception of Chaikia, have won, this course underwent a real extensive renovation and kind of a redesign. In fact, they made some real significant changes. I believe Phil Hans did the redesign, and it's now it used to be like back when you see the highlights of Stockton winning or with Goosen, it seemed like it was a tight tree lined, heavy rough kind of a golf course. Well, it's going to be difficult for them to get the rough up in May in Oklahoma. They're just not going to have kind of the heat to get that Bermuda rough the way that it could be, if they were, say, going back there in August. So it will help a bomber in that sense. You won't have to hit fairways as much as most major championships, but I really believe it's a second shot golf course just because the greens and looking at the book that I did for last year's event, there are several greens that are 26 and 27 and 28 yards deep, which is very small for tour standards. It's more like Pebble Beach or Hilton Head, size of a putting surface. And they're very severe around the surroundings. So if you do miss them, it's a difficult up and down. I think it's a second shot golf course, to be honest, even though the length is what it is. I would favor a strong iron player.
So a strong iron player. So I'm trying to gather, because obviously no one's going to hit 100% of the greens in regulation for the week. And if we're talking, if we're talking about the best iron players in the world, they are the first two names, at least that come to my mind: Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas. The difference between those two guys, Morikawa drives it much better than Justin Thomas, doesn't quite have the around the green game of one Justin Thomas, who has incredible touch when he ends up missing some of these greens in regulation. How much of a factor do you think that's going to play? That if you don't have that touch around the greens and be able to save yourself getting it up and down for par and making those 5-6 footers, like, are you dead in the water if you're not going to be able to do that here?
You're going to need short game skills for sure. I can think of a few holes that play significantly uphill. 4 comes to mind, 18 comes to mind, that you could spin it off the green or maybe come up a yard or two short of the front edge, and the ball will be 40 or 50 yards away from the green, but by the time it finishes. And then the bunkering around the greens, I recall it being very deep and very penal. So your guys are going to hit it. They're going to miss greens, like you said. They're going to hit it in those bunkers. You're going to have a really creative short game to walk away from Southern Hills having a good week.
So this would make sense that Tiger ended up playing pretty well here. How did Chaka navigate it? And how did Stephen Ames navigate it? I mean, they both shot really good scores.
Yeah, well, Chaka, I think he won maybe back-to-back. He won the tradition as well. So he was obviously playing just amazing golf during that stretch last year. He might have been in a 3-week stretch. He won 2 majors, or 4-week stretch maybe. And Stephen played well. Yeah. I remember we were paired maybe with Ernie Els on Saturday. So I mean, it's a kind of a golf course that the cream will rise to the top for sure. There, it's going to separate players. We were joking, today there's a significant amount of PGA club professionals playing, and boy, this is really going to be a challenge for some of them. I know most of the PGA Championship sites are difficult, but I just really think this is a really difficult golf course. I don't think the scores will be very low in comparison to past PGA Championships.
So I'm now trying to wrap my mind around what the overall balance. I mean, no one is doing this better right now than Scotty Scheffler, obviously, whether it's all facets of golf. I mean, whether the putter can keep up or not. What types you mentioned it's going to be Bermuda rough. Is it going to be Bermuda greens as well?
I think they were bent greens, if I remember correctly. Bermuda to maybe Zoysia fairways, Bermuda rough, kind of a mix in the Zoysia fairways. It's really neat. In case you didn't see last year, the viewers will enjoy this. The way that Gil Hans did this, he did like all fairway cuts. So you'll walk off the green, and it might be fairway all the way mown to the next tee box. And then from that, the fairway continues all the way at the same cut, all the way into the landing area, rather than having specific tees, greens, whatever. It's really neat how it flows. But I just remember the difficulty last year was not the rough. I don't remember. And I think we had a really cold winter. There was some winter kill still because we were playing in May as well. And I just think they weren't able to get the rough as heavy as they wanted it. I think the difficulty in the golf course, as I can recall, was if you missed a green, it was really difficult to get up and down.
What are these green complexes like? You mentioned that you could potentially spin the ball off the green and end up 50 yards away from the hole. That would lead me to believe that there's not a great deal of rough surrounding these green surfaces. Like, can you putt from off the green here?
Not really. The fairway is not like a bent grass type surface, that's tight that you can roll the ball off of. But it is a surface that's very playable, like a Zoysia Bermuda mix, where you can spin it. But it also, the ball will sit on top of it and roll off quite a ways. And that's one of the negatives of not being able to have much rough. The ball will just continue to go further off of the, away from the fairway or away from the green. And there's a lot of elevation there. People are surprised maybe in Oklahoma, they think of it as being flat, but there's a significant amount of elevation change up and down on this golf course.
You mentioned that after the redesign, there's not as many trees, really, just tree. Basically, it's not a parkland tree course anymore. So does that make everything susceptible to these Oklahoma winds that could potentially come through as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And direction of two. I looked at the second hole today. They're playing it at 500 yards, par 4, kind of head southwest. That's dead into the normal wind. Some of these holes are just going to be brutal. We were hitting 5 and 6 irons into this, and we were 60 yards ahead of where they're going to be playing from. So it's going to be, a typical day down there is going to be probably 15 to 20, 25 mile an hour winds. It's just common. And as I live in Nebraska, not far away from Oklahoma, we've had the windiest spring on record. So I can't imagine that's going to change. Every day in the Midwest, it's blown, 20 to 30 miles an hour, it seemed like. If they have 4 days like that in Tulsa, I'd take even par.
Well, the way that I'm trying to think about it, with Chakia ended up winning, and when I think about him in terms of how his stats rate out in terms of being on the PGA Tour, a very accurate driver of the ball, but absolutely no distance. Now, I would imagine that his distance rates out a little bit better on the Champions Tour at the moment, right?
Correct. Yes, that might have been his first or second event. I know it was certainly early on in his. He was 50. So yeah, when he comes out here, he's long. As you can imagine, he's playing against some guys that are 58, 59, 60 years old. They're obviously still world-class players, but have lost length. So, yeah, I would say on the PGA Tour, as he was, ending his career there, he was probably one of the shorter players. Out here, he's definitely longer than average.
So in terms of this PGA Championship, it does sound, by everything that you've described, especially with the difficulty of holding these greens with longer irons, that I don't want to hammer down on driving distance, but I probably want to give not necessarily special attention to guys that don't drive it all that far, the Brendan Todds, Kevin Nas of the world, guys that I really like who, based on everything that you've described, I think rate out really well with their short game, with their irons, with their putting. But how big of a disadvantage is it going to be to them that they're not even at the average length of the PGA Tour? They're 20 yards below of where that's going to be. Is that going to put them in a deep hole early, or does the rest of the game kind of allow them to tread water around par if they're clicking?
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. I don't think that, like I said, I know it's long on the scorecard, but I really believe that whether you're hitting a 4-iron in or a 6-iron in, you've got to hit these greens. And I would go with somebody. I really, like you mentioned Justin Thomas earlier, great iron player and great short game. What a combination I think that's going to be at Southern Hills.
Do we have any courses that we may be seeing in the major championship rotation, or that people, maybe myself, might be familiar with, that you can put some sort of a comp to, or is this course just too unique from that regard? But like you said, it's wind affected, It's somewhat open, the rough isn't super penal, but there's a ton of elevation changes. Obviously, it's long. Outside of the wind, I know that Augusta doesn't necessarily rate out exactly the same, but that's a lot of the same elements from what you're talking about.
Yes, it does. That's not a bad comparison, actually. Obviously, when Perry Maxwell did the course originally, wasn't quite that way. But with the redesign, clearing out of the trees, having some more of the closely mown areas, Augusta is a pretty good comparison. Okay.
Troy, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your expertise. Is there anything else you think that people should know about Southern Hills before I start running advanced statistical models on this?
No, I think I've covered everything I know. I'm sure you'll come up with something as you study further, but hopefully it's been of some help with what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. Good luck to you. Good luck to Stephen Ames in the upcoming tournaments. And does Chaika get a spot in this year's PGA Championship because he won the PGA?
He does.
All right, so you guys got some work to do, and maybe we'll see you this time next year on the course.
That sounds great.
All right, thanks so much. Okay, we're on fantasynational.com. Once again, fantasynational.com/Mayo to get yourself 20% off. DraftKings Field is loaded in already, so let's kind of walk through what we learned from Troy, what we can glean from the scorecard, and try to figure stuff out. So let's first just go over 7,400 yards. So longer courses, and we'll settle it that way. Just put on our filters. We can try to go through recent form. Obviously, I am recording this before the conclusion of the Byron Nelson, so the Byron Nelson stats will not be included in this. So come Monday morning when the stats are updated, obviously you can rerun anything that you want, whether it be a model, the mixed condition, whatever it might be, you can figure that out. Also, of note, on Friday evening, Phil Mickelson withdrew from the PGA Championship, so the defending champ is not going to be in the field this time around. He was $7,100 on DraftKings. I believe he was 110 to 1, 100 and something to 1, I would guess at least, for Phil Mickelson. No, they've already got Phil Mickelson out of the field, so he was at 100. I think he was 110 to 1 on DraftKings Sportsbook. But alas, he is not there anymore, so do not use any Phil in your lineup. Not that you were probably going to do that anyway. I mean, maybe he could capture lightning in a bottle, but you probably don't want to take the 51-year-old dude who hasn't played in 5 months. But crazier things have happened, like Phil winning the PGA Championship a year ago. It happened. So the main things that we want to focus in on, based on what Troy told us, based on what I've seen from the scorecard, we can go into like a full actual statistical model here in a second. We can build it out and weight what we want, but just take a look at over 7,400 yards. Let's start with that and work from there. So we have, let's see, strokes gained total in these sorts of rounds. Now, people don't have a ton of rounds in these sorts of events. So you can see the courses over on the right-hand side. After we turned on the 7,400 plus filter, you have Augusta National, Baltusrol, which was a PGA Championship, Bay Hill, Bethpage, which was a PGA Championship. A few years ago, it's also hosted U.S. Opens. And has it opened U.S. Opens? Yeah, it's hosted U.S. Opens. What am I talking about? This is the one that Brooks beat DJ. Luke List finished inside the top 8. Jordan Spieth was really good in. Carnousties on there. CC of Jackson. That's kind of an odd one. U.S. Open at Chambers Bay. So this could go back a really long time, but you can always see the courses which are included by scrolling down after the filter is turned on. Let's shrink this down a little bit. Let's go past 36 rounds and see if this tells us a bit of a different story. So over 7,400 yards, let's go on average. And we can even do something like click on past 5 years. We can go 2022, 21, 20, and 2019. So we'll take a look at the past 4 seasons worth of data as we go through this, and hopefully we can figure something out from here. So strokes gained total, Dustin, Thomas, so just Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, Rory Zalatoris. Zalatoris and Rory are actually tied in strokes gained total on that. Rom Connors, Xander, Cantlay, Hovland, and Scotty Scheffler are all the ones who are up there right now. And if we go per average, we can figure it a little bit differently. And on average, Zalatoris moves up a spot. Chan Kim, for Chan, he ends up like 5th in this. That's only 4 rounds of weighted material. Same as Mito, only has 9 rounds. Jung Hung Kim only has 8 rounds. So those are, all these are going to be weird statistical outliers, even if we look at an average sample of 36 rounds, because obviously not all 7,400 yard courses are the same, but it's intriguing to go back and look at that to see who the guys who are playing really well are. So we can go tee to green. Sam Horsfield in 3 rounds has been amazing. Cameron Young only has the 10 rounds. We know how well Cameron Young has been playing coming in. Like, the guy is a top 5 machine. He is going to be very popular, I'm guessing, at the PGA Championship. Although the bent stats are not great for putting. I don't think anyone really cares too much about that. When you start weighting recent form with driving distance, and then, oh yeah, let's take a look at that price, $7,600. Pretty easy way to construct a roster, I would say. Coming off 2nd and 3rd place finishes, a 2nd at the Genesis, which is another super. It's funny because the Genesis, I don't know if it does qualify or not, if it's 73 something. I think it's over 7,400 yards. I suppose I can go search for Riviera on here. Yeah, Riviera is one of the courses that qualifies. But that's another one that has massive elevation changes. You don't get in too much trouble by missing the fairway. You can play it out of the rough pretty easily. Even though you can get the bad lies and, as they say, the Kikuya rough, but it didn't really seem to make much of an issue this year. So the Genesis would be a pretty decent comp course. The Masters I talked about with Troy, that obviously it's not the same, but it has similar elements to it. So Cameron Young's going to be a very popular selection at the PGA Championship, and the numbers would back it up. At least the first ones we're looking at. Zalatoris missed the cut at the Byron Nelson. Most of that putting related, which is going to be a thing with Will Zalatoris. But fast, bent grass greens are really where he actually does his best work. Like the Masters, he's putted the lights out in his 2 appearances. They don't get counted. He doesn't get credit for those because there's no shot link data at those events. He would get strokes gained total credit for those, which is why he continues to pop up so highly here. We can take a look at his round by round. So you see the Masters pops up. He gets total, but he gets no other periphery stats that go along with it because there's nothing to measure against at that time. So he he's someone that, maybe he has something, the slower Bermuda bent grass greens, not so hot, like we saw at the Byron Nelson. The faster ones, like we're going to see at the PGA Championship, maybe that's going to be a thing. The only thing that he's losing strokes in this time is putting. And at $8,900 coming off a miscut, it's really difficult to fathom. The average DraftKings player is so much smarter these days, especially ones who play in the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League. Link now open in the description. Go play it, go fill it. So, we continue to get big money at majors. But it's going to be really hard to see. Let's see, in the salary cap, where does he end up rating out? He is right above Sam Burns. Brooks is just above him. Cantlay's right there. Hideki's having a pretty good week in Texas. Shane Lowry. I really like Shane Lowry this week, although you can see he does not play this sort of, if you just look at this particular strain of courses, he's like the worst guy. Shane Lowry, and man, he is the only player with negative strokes gained total above $7,400. Billy Horschel would be the next one actually losing on that. Let's see where that's all gone wrong for him. I mean, he played the Masters incredibly well. Wells Fargo from last year. Geez, it's been few and far between for him. We'd have to go back in time, really a long time. So when it comes to these longer courses, generally he doesn't play a ton on the PGA Tour, which is kind of strange. It's usually the Masters, like these premium events. Didn't have a good Arnold Palmer Invitational last season, so that really sunk him a lot too. One really bad round at Quail Hollow last year. That didn't turn out too well for him. But overall, Shane Lowry's been really good, obviously, as anyone who's been betting him has not been great because he hasn't been winning. But just look at these results. 2nd, 13th, 12th, 3rd. And I do think that when we look at other courses that, I mean, I don't want to say that Valspar is going to be similar, but Valspar is it's a par 71. It's like 7,300 and something yards. So when we take that into consideration, I think that, it should play around what we're thinking. It has hidden distance in it. That's why I was mentioning Riviera as well. There's hidden distance that comes along with these courses. So we just go back to tee to green again. So Horsfield, Young, Rory, Connors continues to be up there. Can the guy make a putt? Can the guy chip? Who knows? Probably not, but we're going to go down that well at $8,000. I'm sure of that. Scheffler and Rahm, the two highest priced guys in the field. Obviously, they're up there. Tiger is playing up there too. Curious to see how far this goes back. Farmers, Genesis, Masters, WGC Mexico. I don't remember Chapultepec playing that long, but I guess at the massive elevation actually played shorter than it was. Not great the final 2 rounds of the Masters. I mean, both last year in 2020 and this time around. It's not really done all that great at the non-Masters majors in this version of Tiger that we don't even know really what version of Tiger that we're getting at the moment, but that's interesting to see. In terms of approach, it's Horsfield and those 3. What 3 rounds are those from? That has to be 2 separate tournaments. Oh, the Puerto Rico Open and 1 round at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So the final round when they pushed the tees back in 2019, had a great approach round. But so, yeah, sometimes you have to take these with a bit of context. Sergio rates out really well, $7,200. How did he finish up at TPC Potomac? I think he finished all right. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, 21st at Wells Fargo, 23rd, 26th. 38th. He hasn't missed a cut in ages, at least on the PGA Tour in 2022. I don't know how he's done completely overseas, but the around the green game was a lot better at Wells Fargo. Had been putting a little bit better. None of that on bent, mind you, except for at the Masters, and we have no idea how he actually putted at the Masters. Have to look back into those stats a little bit later on. And in terms of ball striking, how are we doing here? Horsfield, Rory. So Rory continues to rate out really well of the top end guys. Of the very top end guys, like looking for peak performance, you're going to see Scheffler. The one who's down a little bit is going to be Cam Smith at $9,700. He generally does not rate out as well on these courses, but if it's going to be something where people aren't hitting a bunch of greens and regulation, have to rely on short game and putting, obviously we know that's where Cameron Smith can come back into it. It's just funny to see him, be half tee to green of what Jordan Spieth is. That's somewhat shocking, to tell you the truth, because they're in that same vein of player of how, Cameron Smith doesn't have quite the magic beans of Jordan Spieth. The Jordan Spieth of the past, at least. But tee to green overall, Cameron Smith's been a little bit better. Although, Spieth has been no slouch. He won the Heritage without ever having to make any putts. And the approach game has actually been really good for him. It's weird to see, at the Masters, a big stage, miss the cut. Big stage at the Players, miss the cut. Everything else has been pretty good, but maybe we can take a look at some of these, smaller greens to see if that's an angle that we can play at this week. So we have 7,400 yards. Let's add that to the mixed condition. Actually, we'll try to really filter out what we're doing here. So we have a par 70. There's only 6 courses that have played, or 6 rounds that are weighted, that are over 7,400 yards that have played as a par 70. What? Bethpage Black and PGA National. So we've had some longer Honda Classics in all 4 rounds at Bethpage during the PGA Championship. We're not going to have a ton of data from that, so 6 is the most you can have. Dustin, Rory, Brooks, EVR, Jason Day, 1 round from Siwoo, so that's not statistically significant enough to make any sort of difference. Let's unclick that one and see what else we got going on here. Calm conditions for 70s. So yeah, let's just throw in over 7,400 yards into the mixed condition. Actually, let's unclick it and see what we got going on for just par 70s in general. We'll even downgrade to 7,200 to 7,400 yards to give us a bigger sample of par 70s at least, just to see what happens when you start taking away some of the par 5s and see the players that go out. Usually it's Daniel Berger who just jumps up on these par 70s overall. Let's see where Berger ends up. Berger's only 17th when it comes down to it, 12th tee to green from this range. Keith Mitchell gets a big bump here, although he has 9 weighted rounds. That's somewhat encouraging to see for $6,600 if we're looking for a cheaper player. Paul Casey, who knows where he's at with his injury status right now, continues to withdraw from tournament after tournament. At least with Hideki, we know he's back. He's playing well. With Casey, the stats are always going to look great. Do you have the stomach for it? Or are you going to be the person that uses Paul Casey knowing he's hurt and then just run to Twitter to bitch when he withdraws after lock? Like, I'm sorry, you need to have a bit of a heads up on this one. The guy hasn't been healthy in 3 months. When you're using him, you're just hoping to get him at 0% ownership or whatever anyone else comes in at. And at $7,400, it's less. I mean, it's always going to be a gamble when we're talking about health, but at least at $7,400, it's a little bit less at that point because, it's not that you're going to win much money with a 5 of 6 if he does withdraw, but it's not like he's 8,600 where the cost benefit of taking Casey over another really good player is, there's no reason to ever go to him, at least at $7,400. Who you have to put him up against? Like Keegan, Jason Day, or right above him, Gooch and Horschel, Kokrak and Woodland and Wolf, Bubba Watson. Wolf is going to be super duper interesting here. So we're playing in Oklahoma. Obviously, he went to college in Oklahoma. It seemed like he got his game back a little bit at Wells Fargo, didn't it? He obviously had the great first round, kind of meandered from there, but it's weird to see him with 0 strokes gained off the tee, which is horrible for Matthew Wolff. Like when you look out long term, I mean, over his career, he's averaging a bunch of strokes off the tee, but it's been so bad recently. Basically, since his amazing run where at the PGA Championship, he crushed it, came second at the U.S. Open, and then basically fell off a cliff. He played the next week at the Shriners, and then that was it for him. He's been disastrous off the tee when he started to go through both mental health problems, battling back from injury. Hasn't been good for Matthew Wolff. So even just to see him at 0 is actually encouraging for me a little bit. People know I love Matthew Wolff. It's probably not the best advice in the world to use Matthew Wolff, but I mean, these are the sort of things that we're going through. If you're playing Casey, you have to hope that he's healthy and he plays like Paul Casey. With Matthew Wolff, you're going to use him for $100 less. You have to hope that, hey, he's fixed whatever is going on with him off the tee. Familiar confines, used to these green speeds, used to these grass types. Maybe there's a bit of familiarity there that he can really get it going. That would be nice to see. And obviously the driving distance is going to play itself out really, really well too. So that's something to look for par 70, 72, and over 7,400 yards. Let's unclick all of those. And now take a look at the putting, the old putting splits on bent grass. See if we can get Fast and Lightning, which I'm assuming that this is going to be. Fast and Lightning, we'll click on those, and we still have it sorted by the past 4 years, so since the beginning of the 2019 season. We're going to take a look at bent grass and look at the best per round performers on that particular grass type. Take the average out. Boom. Martin Keimer. Martin Keimer is soon to be one of the faces of the Saudi Tour. Poor Saudi tour. They're going head to head with my Canadian Open. I don't like the sounds of that. Hope it really doesn't besmirch the honor of the world's third oldest Open championship. I don't think they really care what toes they're stepping on here. But per round, past 36 with, let's say, over 12 rounds of putting to take a sample from. Kokrak's the best, a stroke per round on bent. Rory is second best. Cantlay. Bryson. Again, with Bryson, no idea if he's actually going to end up playing in this event. I've been following his Instagram. His hand seems to be healing. I think he'll probably end up giving it a go. He might not, but I have no idea whether or not he's going to be 100% or not. The around the green game has been really bad for him, so it's probably a stay away at this point. Tringali, Noren, Zach Johnson, Merritt, Adam Scott, Justin Rose, Harris English. No, there's a blast from the past. Maybe him and his hip problem can get back. I don't know if he's playing or not, but he's listed in the DraftKings pricing. Keith Mitchell, I wonder if I click on, I doubt very many. I really like Dustin Johnson this week, by the way. I think that's going to end up being my bet, but I have to click on 6 names here in order to make this work. So we'll go with Kokrak, Adam Scott, Cantlay, and Rory with the other two, just so we can see what the projected ownership is looking like on a Friday evening as I record. Yeah, not enough lineups yet. Only 6 lineups have been generated. People are not off to, people don't want to generate lineups so far. I think the pricing just went up on the site as well. So this is not really telling us anything, not enough of a sample. This is one of the things when you're doing your first look and your early picks, but it does strike me as Keith Mitchell, once we start, especially when we go through the statistical model, we really weight driving distance, then we're probably going to see a little bit more from him. So you have Cam, Dustin Johnson, Answer, Xander. They're all kind of up there. Cameron Davis is another pretty interesting one. Obviously, he made his run at the Heritage. That was nice. He was looking good for one day at Wells Fargo. Then he was not. I guess minus 3.2 strokes around the green is probably going to do that to you. Not great, pal. Although over the past 20, he's actually gaining around the green. It's either gaining a lot or losing a lot. That's not the end of the world, really, if we're banking on someone who's at $6,700. Throw him on the short list. All right, so I think we're through bent grass, and now let's unclick fast, unclick lightning, and unclick bent. And we're going to go over to driving distance. This worked really well at the Mexico Open. Obviously, you're going to need other skills this week at the PGA Championship, but I do think, based on what Troy told me, that driving distance is going to be pretty critical this week. Not overwhelmingly the one thing that you need to focus on, but something that could lend itself and help you try to weed people out. A good tiebreaker, I do think here. So we have Bryson, Champ, and Wolf. Champ is interesting. If you can go full hog with the driver, just how well he's played at Augusta, if this is going to be something that's somewhat similar, it becomes interesting. You can see he did it off the tee and putting. I mean, this is basically the Bryson method of how he ended up coming in 6th place at Mexico. If he's rolling it well, Mexico is not a fast bent grass green, but the Masters is, obviously. Let's see how he is. What are his splits like on bent? He's actually the worst on bent than anything else. Very good on Paspalum, obviously, with his bunch of strokes gained at the Mexico Open. So Champ, it's probably a bit too much for me to go down that route. So Bryson, Champ, Wolf, Rory, Vegas. Those are your top 5. Brem, Keska the Foxe, he's number 7. Oh, my guy, Ryan Fox, he's back. How the hell has Ryan Fox been playing? Who knows? Official World Golf Rankings, Ryan Fox. I feel like he was in the mix at a tournament like 2 weeks ago. One in Spain, I want to say. Man, that's a pretty good run for him right now. 1 on the DP World Tour at the Ras Al Khaimah Classic. That was back in February. T15. All right, so he's coming in pretty good form. T15, T9, T8 at the Betfred. Oh my God, am I going to play stupid Ryan Fox again? Ugh. That's never a good sign. But yes, I probably will. I mean, you don't need to play a ton of Ryan Fox at $6,300, but where did I play him? And I can't remember if he absolutely burned me or not. I think it was at Bethpage where I played him, or maybe it was Shinnecock Hills where I played him. Came 16th in the Open, not great results in any of these big tournaments. No, 11th at the World Cup, whatever the hell that is. 27th, that was the one at Bethpage. I believe so. That was the one at Bethpage. Let's see. No, this one at Bellerive. Par 70, actually, it's one of the only other courses that kind of fits the mold of what we're looking for here. So Bellerive, yeah. So we have Ryan Fox. Let's go. Fire up some Ryan Fox. See how that goes for us. Probably not great. I didn't realize Chan Kim bombs it so much. Min Woo is up there. Luke List is going to be up there. Okay. I think it's time to jump in and try to build a model here. Been kind of talking through this just a little bit and see what we need to do. So we're going to unclick and reset all the filters. Unclick all of those. Anything else we have on here? Nah. All right. Let's build a model. Oh, there's my Potomac model. Not good. PGA Championship Kiowa. PGA Championship Bethpage. Let's take a look at what I had for this one. Because this is one of the courses that's obviously going to be pretty close to, at least lengthwise, difficulty-wise, of maybe what we'll see this week, if it truly is going to be, single digits under par is going to be the winner. Maybe that's a route that we can take here and look at a similar course. Different green types, obviously. This is on East Coast POA, was at Bethpage. That's not going to be the case this time around. But let's try to take a gander at what we're doing. Strokes gained off the tee. I don't know why I had stuff weighted at 8 in terms of fair. I mean, hitting fairways is great and everything. But so we'll go off the tee 20%, driving distance 10%, approach 25%, around the green 15%. Okay, I think that's a nice start for what we're looking for. Now we need to go to the. Oh, where am I at here? Trying to pull up the. There we go. How are we looking for the... I'm just trying to find the holes par 4s. So par 4s between 450 and 500 yards. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 1 is 527 yards. So we have about 7 that are in that range. So keeping that at 10% is pretty good. The par 3s, 251, 251, good God, 214, 173, and 230. So even just, we'll keep in proximity 200 plus, but I think we should also throw in par 3s that are over, they don't even have a category for that. So there we are, 225 plus. We'll throw that into it as well. Stroke gain putting, we'll keep it 5%. I do like the 15% for around the green. I do think that's going to be a pretty critical number here. And then proximity 75 to 100. As Troy said, that you're going to get a lot of runoff on these greens. You might have these like in-between wedge shots. So that's almost a part of around the green, at least to me thinking it out. Maybe that's completely wrong, but that's what I'm going to be rolling with here. What are we at? 95%? Okay, so let's go 225. Call that a day. Load that in. See what we got coming. Hopefully it's something good, something I want to see. It's going to tell me Zalatoris is the best player in the world. Corey Connors, Rory, Scheffler, Rahm. Those are my guesses. Cantlay should be up there as well. By rankings, past 36 rounds. Justin Thomas, Luke List, Cameron Young. Okay. Keegan, Sammy Burns, Will Zalatoris, John Rahm, Cantlay, Rory, Scheffler. Those are the rest of them. Chris Kirk at $6,900 is 11th. Homa, Hovland. Does Hovland have the goods around the greens to get it done this week? He's 141st in this field in strokes gained around the green over the past 36 rounds. Not great. Homa, also not the best. Rahm has been struggling in that area too, Zalatoris has been struggling. He's like average in this field. The guys inside the top 20 around the greens, List, Cantlay, Rory, Scheffler, Kirk. Sungjae is up there as well. Sungjae is a pretty interesting case. I'm surprised to see Neiman so good here. Neiman's going to be a very popular selection, even at $8,500. You don't really know what's going on. He rates out 15th, by the way, in all of this. Obviously, putts much better on bent than anywhere else. Has had a bunch of good weeks. He's won at the Genesis this year, top 10 at the Farmers, having a good week at Byron Nelson. Didn't play great at the Masters, but was up there for a bit. Sungjae has kind of been all over the map. Seems to be getting it together a little bit. He lost 4 strokes putting at the Heritage, but was great. Gained almost 10 strokes tee to green. Recaptured something at the Masters. Because obviously you want bombers in the field. But at the same time, there are a handful of players that are a little bit short. Not to say that Sungjae is short. He's not. He's not Brennan Todd. I don't want to make it seem that way. But he's not Dustin Johnson at the same time. In terms of strokes gained driving distance, he's 61st in this field. not bad. It's sort of like Zalatoris around the greens. It's passable is what we're looking for. He's not going to lose it because of his distance, but off the tee, he's been so good. He's getting to the right position. Around the green, he's been so good. So Sung Jae, you're going on the list, Sung James. Who are the worst good players in this field? Don't forget, by the way, I know there's a ton of players in this field, but DraftKings-wise, you're going to have like legit creative players. With the PGA professionals, as Troy mentioned, like they're going to be overwhelmed. Maybe one or two of them make the cut. They are not worth your time. They're like dead money in the pot. Just like John Daly, the real deal Sean McKeel. He is. How did Pablo Larrazabal? Did he win recently? Let's check him out. How is he doing over in Europe? I can't remember if it was him or someone else who ended up winning recently. I think it was him who won recently. Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago in Spain, the ISPS Honda Championship in Spain. Followed up with the T13 and then was in Qatar. He was T5 and then won earlier in the year on the African DP World Tour, the My Golf Life. I'm going to really try to say it. I want to say Larrazabal because I think it's like Olazabal, but that's definitely not how you say it. So I'm the idiot over here with the poor pronunciations. My bad on that one. Grace rates out very poorly. Beam Bima, who's got the keys to my? So the defending champs, the PGA professionals, I mean, Pablo, the stats aren't going to look good, but $6,500 is actually not all that bad. Min Woo has not been good. Reed obviously has not been good. Phil withdrawn. Lee Westwood. Chake is in because he won the senior. Yeah, so who are the best players? Danny Van Tonder, 125th by the numbers. How has he been going overseas? Because I feel like he popped up the PGA Championship last year out of nowhere. It's like, man, Daniel Van Tonder. I think he was gaining a bunch of strokes tee to green and like couldn't putt to save his life. That's at least what I remember. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. 11.3 strokes gained at Kiowa Island. Tee to green, lost 7.3. Lost 6.1 in Mexico as well. So maybe not the best putter. Tends to make cuts, though, at these major championships whenever he finds himself in the field. Now up to being the 103rd ranked player in the world. Hasn't missed a cut since the middle of March, it looks like. 16th, 26th, 61st. Yeah, probably not going to old Danny V. Danny VT taking a pass. Kisner's been bad. Then you have all of the pros. They're not good, so don't even think about them. Hoshino, Hogard, Wyatt Worthington. What a name. Is there any chance that Wyatt Worthington didn't grow up with money? I would say no, would be the answer to that. Patty Harrington is in based on his performance at this tournament last year. Playing pretty well in the Champions Tour event this weekend as well. Probably not a place where I want to go. Man, answer's been bad. 101st. Oh! That's horrible. It was better at the Wells Fargo. It was kind of better at the Wells Fargo. The chipping has been really bad for him, so I guess we're crossing off old Honest Abe. The Mexican Allen Iverson getting the boot from the list early. My guy Higo not playing well. Not only shows up in non-strokes gained weighted events, so it's going to be tough to look at him. EVR was someone who plays those over. Who plays the par threes really well? Those really long par threes. Rose, Merritt, English, Scott. List is up there as well. Man, can Lukey make enough putts? I got to say no would be the answer. But he did just win at a super long course earlier this year. Wells Fargo, yeah, the chipping and putting sucked. But, man, so good in terms of ball striking. Got it back on track after a tough Masters and a tough RBC Heritage. PGA Championship, I mean, he's played in 4 of them, coming 6th in one, 51st in another. I mean, you're going to come in 51st when you lose 7.5 strokes putting. But 8.6 tee to green is pretty good. So trying to find these sleepers. So the names that continuously pop up, Cam Young, like I said, no matter what you do, he continues to be up there. So that's probably what we're going to have to go with. Let's do a rolling report and take a look at the custom model and see guys that are improving or guys that were better longer term than they are in the short term. And see what we got on the go here. What are Luke List's odds this week? What are Cameron Young's odds? I bet you Cameron Young's odds are unfair, whatever they are. Like 30 to 1 or something stupid like that. 100 to 1. Okay, that's not actually bad. And what's List at? Well, List is also at 100 to 1. I bet you can shop those numbers a little bit deeper if you really wanted to, considering Patrick Reed's still 80 to 1. By the time Monday comes around, he's going to be like 300 to 1 or something insane like that. I actually bet Will Zalatoris. I got in because I'm a sucker for one thing, but he was available at 50 to 1 at a place where I was betting. And based off his miscut, I don't know if he's going to drop all the way to 50 to 1, but he'll be in the 40s by the time Monday rolls along, I think at least. So past 12 rounds in the very, very short term, best short term form, I'm adding Lowry to the list, although it didn't look great. Hovland's an interesting one because, like I mentioned before, can he chip well enough to keep himself in it? You hope that the answer is yes, because he seems perfectly tailored to this sort of course. Even with the bad chipping, he still rates inside the top 10 of every range except for the last 4 rounds. It's pretty good. Aaron Wise inside the top 10 pass. So Homa, Lowry, Vic, Thomas, Burns, Wise, Young, Vegas, Scotty Scheffler, Adam Hadwin. Didn't really work out too well for old Adam Hadwin at the Byron Nelson. Berger, Keegan, Horschel, Kirk, Spieth, Zalatoris, Mito, Luke List, Morikawa. Morikawa is an auto play for me, so he's going on the list. And it almost feels like Scheffler should be an auto play as well. I'll check him on the short list right now, too. Just clicking names because I like to click names. The best cheap players of that bunch, Mito, Aaron Wise are going to be the ones. So let's just take a look at the overall salary and scroll to the low 7s and see the names that are popping the most. Vegas, Harmon, who was WD at Byron Nelson, Aaron Wise, Chris Kirk. Bobby Mack could be an interesting play here. We'll see. Mito, Stuart Sink continues to rate out pretty well. Cameron Davis is inside the top 50 of players in the field over the short term. Keith, he's up there at 49th. Anyone else above that? JJ Spawn is 41st. Hadwin is 10th. Lonto is 27th. Another great week from Lonto with the Byron Nelson, at least through 2 rounds. At $6,300. If he has a good finish, he's going to be uber chalk. Put it this way, if Lonto ends up being uber chalk after Hadwin was uber chalk, the move would just be to play Hadwin instead, although it's not a great course for him, not being a long hitter at all. It's also not a great course for Lonto, especially with his horrendous chipping, with the ball striking has been back on point for Lonto in his past 3 events. So, I'm not breaking news on that one. I'm sure people are aware that Lonto is continuing to do well. Now let's take a look at the past 100 rounds and see long-term who really fits the course for what we're looking at the best. Thomas, Rahm, DJ, Zalatoris, Hovland. Xander, Rory, Keegan, Scheffler, Casey, Burns. List continues to be up there. He's still 12th. Homa is still up there. He's still 13th. Morikawa remains 14th. Who takes a big bump here? Cantlay takes a bump in the long term. So does Neiman. Berger stays about the same. Brooks, Tiger, Lowry continues to be pretty good. Hatton, Finau all of a sudden starts looking a little bit better. Connors at 8,000 continues to be around the plateau. Vegas and Mito, by the numbers, are going to be the best $6,000 players outside of, I guess, what's Keegan at 75? List is at 72. Those are kind of the guys. Usually best to fade those players if chalk starts to concentrate on them, but obviously we'll end up seeing HV3. Good numbers. Very solid across the board. Long term and in the short term. Hasn't played since the Heritage. Well, he played with Bubba at the team event, but 7.6 strokes on approach. Gained a bunch putting. The approach has been really good. Let's see, longer courses. How has the driving been? I missed the cut at 2 of the longer courses that were played. I don't know. It's tough to say with old HV3. Answer rates out a whole lot better now than he does in the short term, a little bit longer. Good for Woodland. And we look at Belle Reve. He's someone who played pretty well at Belle Reve. Hasn't been a great go for old Gary lately, but miscut at Wells Fargo, 21st in Mexico. So his hot run through Florida, obviously over. Doesn't mean he can't recapture some magic, though. So wouldn't hate to see that happen for Gary Woodland in this circumstance. But of the cheap players that we're potentially looking for, Munoz, depending on how he ends up doing at the Byron Nelson, could really, change a few opinions here and have chalk concentrate on him at $6,800. Arnis just won overseas at $6,700. We'll take a look at his overall performance and see what is happening with him. All right, I guess he's not available. Interesting. Maybe I have it spelled incorrectly. Oh, there we go. He's just under Adri. He doesn't go by his full name. T48, first, miscut, second, 8th, 9th, 3rd Not a bad start, really, to the DP World Tour season. Having a good year so far. Interesting. I'll have to ask Sky. When Tom and Sky do the European Tour Picks and Bet show pertaining to the PGA Championship and focusing on the European players, could be a way to go look at this. So, somewhat interesting. And that'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Just give your head a shake if you haven't done it yet. Go play in the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Listeners League. It's down in the description. Share the show around. Try to make this the biggest week in the history of the Pat Mayo Experience, and you can do that, and I will bribe you with one of multiple $100 giveaways. What you need to do: sub to the YouTube channel, sub to the newsletter. That's completely free and has a ton of actionable info, by the way. And the big thing, rating and review, 5 stars on the audio podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave a nice rating. You can make something up for all I care. And leave your Twitter handle or email down in the description. We'll announce those winners on Tuesday's show. I'm excited. We're back. It's major championship season. I hope one of us can win multiple millions of dollars on DraftKings. We can win all of our bets. Will that be the case? Probably not, but we can try our best to do it. So thank you all for watching. Smash the like on the way out, and I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!